next episode of the Foally of Man. My name is Chris. I'm here today.
Robert.
And we're going to be looking at Chapter 37, Part 1 of Foally Equestria. This is actually based on Crazed Ramblings' breakups of the chapters for the audiobook.
The KCAT approved breakups.
Yeah, KCAT did approve it, and she actually advises.
Canonically broken apart.
Yes. Canonically shattered into several pieces. Yeah. So, this is The Shadow of the Ministries, Part 1. Mm-hmm. Come here, stable dweller. There are things you should know.
So, we have a huge... Actually, we should preface this beforehand to saying as well. On the Foally of Man, Chris is a Brony. I'm not. You gotta remember, we may have some people who are tuning in for the first time.
I doubt it.
So, well, Chris is a Brony and I'm not. And through this show, we are breaking down the book Fallout Equestria by KCAT.
Now, seeing if he can understand it mostly.
And the answer is no, but time will tell.
Yeah, you're holding on.
Yeah, so we start this chapter off very differently from every other chapter in the book, almost so much to the point that I thought I'd done something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
We finally are hearing things directly from little Pip, as if she has been telling us this as a story the entire time.
The only time she ever did this otherwise was the prologue, where she actually says explicitly, "This is my story." But
in 37 chapters, it's never touched on.
No.
The style is never touched on.
It's actually a first-person tale up until this point, when it suddenly becomes a retelling.
And uses language to the effect of, there's things that I sheltered you from. I wanted to be able to... I couldn't tell this during the events. I needed to be able to tell all of this at once. And it took time for me to feel comfortable enough to talk about all these events in one go.
Yeah. And we've been missing out on apparently a lot of behind the scenes.
The book really wants you to know that some fucked up shit's about to happen. It's referenced this at every aspect all throughout the story. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, we don't go to Canterlot anymore.
And does it disappoint?
Thus far, no, not yet.
No.
But we've only finished point 1, so.
So they start off flying over Canterlot proper. Where they see...
They dive into the pink cloud.
Where they see the cobblestone and the stone streets and the stone fashion and facade pretty much
way more
cracked.
I was going to say, it's way more ruined than they expected.
Yes. For this, actually, for the show notes for him, I included a piece by Brasenio called Ruin. That's the textless version of Ruin. And it kind of has a great visual aid to just kind of show what the ruins of Canterlot look like. But obviously they even describe the entropic effect of pink cloud speeds decay. So it's worse off than you'd even imagine it to be otherwise. It, rather than being 200 years old, it looks more like 1,000 years. Yeah. Untouched by almost anything but weather.
Now, explain this to me. Is Canterlot carved out of a mountain?
Partially,
okay.
Partially carved out of a mountain, and then what they used to carve out of the mountain, they used to hold it up. It's actually kind of this mountain side. It's like they took an outcropping of rock and built around and on top of it.
So exactly like Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings.
If Minas Tirith was floating.
Okay.
Because it's actually a shelf that sticks out.
Right, well, but there is that... Well, anyways, there's the top spire of Minas Tirith that does jut out.
It juts out, but it's not but it's not like floating. It actually doesn't have like Canterlot doesn't have anything underneath it, so it's almost a natural defensive barrier because you literally just walk up to the mountain and there's this massive city above you, but it's not even scalable.
Now, canonically, is Canterlot the home of the goddesses in the show? Okay, so that is one of the things that it makes. So, like King Arthur's court, Camelot, Canterlot is where the royalty resides.
And it's described in the show as being the center of high society.
Gotcha.
Obviously, wherever there's going to be regency, there's going to be aristocracy.
420 million. Different kind of high? Different kind of high. Okay, just clarifying. We also, one of the first things you see upon entering the city is a monument to Celestia.
Yes. The Tower of the Sun, I can't remember exactly the Celestial Tower, but described as being a massive spire with two three-story tall wings.
That's larger than the castle.
And
the argument being that Luna wanted to make sure people knew that she was not trying to, when she succeeded Celestia, that she was not trying to fill the horseshoes of her sister before her.
She was not trying to usurp control.
Right. It's a peaceful transfer of power, people. Not during peace times, but...
Well, I mean, technically making a giant homage to your predecessor is not something that usually goes along with dictatorial despots uprising and taking over.
Well, look at what Stalin did to Lenin.
So their primary opponents, as described in the story, you have the four that are kind of listed here when they run them down. You have the Pink Cloud, you have the Broadcasters, you have the Canterlot Ghouls, and the ALICORNs. ALICORNs that are
disconnected from the goddess.
Disconnected from the goddess.
They are incapable of communicating. It almost seems like that the goddess sent them into the pink fog, sent them to Canterlot to collect.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And they got lost. They lost the connection. And so there's a fucking ton of them.
Yeah, because the goddess is nothing if not stubborn and not very bright.
And they're all drawn to the Ministry of Magic.
The castle.
Oh, the castle. Well,
yep.
Oh. For some reason, I thought they were drawn to... Well, anyways.
I thought it was... I think I may have been wrong, but I thought it said that it was... They were drawn to it like a moth to the flame.
Well, it makes sense because they're pseudo-goddesses, but I guess for some reason they were near a ministry building, and I thought it was
because the ministry buildings are all around.
Right, but I thought specifically it was magic because Twilight Sparkle helped create them. I don't know. I could just... I'm sure. It makes more sense for them to be drawn to the castle.
Yeah. At this time, we actually see one of the first times where Pip finally confronts Velvet about the Fluttershy memory orb.
Well, because she's addicted to it.
Yeah.
Because
it's not a problem. I can stop at any time.
It's become worse since she chose her pet over a pony.
It's also become worse since she kind of lost her leg and regained it. I mean, each of these traumas has caused her to recess more and more into this, not alternate reality, but alternate reality.
Right.
Which is very important. And so little Pip's like...
At the end of the day, Velvet Remedy is a stable dweller. She grew up in stables.
She doesn't know how to cope with this kind of stress, and so she finds an outlet.
And in this environment, it's this whore Madonna complex. She'll cast herself as a prude, and then she'll make some, really risque insinuation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there's even a line in the book where it says, "And yes, it is escapism, so is reading a book," she challenged. Would you be so concerned if I read the same book over and over?
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah.
Moving on.
And the other thing we should say is that at this point, we should clarify, Velvet Remedy still has no idea of how bad Fluttershy.
No.
That Fluttershy is essentially the one that destroyed Equestria.
Yeah. But don't worry. Nothing bad's going to happen.
No, of course not. Now, another thing that we need to touch on is that Calamity himself supposes that the reason why the pink fog is still so intense is that the spell, the mega spell, is still active.
Mm-hmm.
That it never stopped. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And it makes some sense because why in 200 years has it not lessened any?
Dissipated.
Why would it still be so concentrated? But they understand, too, that if it is still going, Canterlot will continue to grow and eventually will destroy the entire world.
Yeah, the pink will inevitably consume the...
there's an understanding that they have to, on some level, stop the mega spell. They have to, one, find it, which sounds like fun. Let's go to the epicenter of this mutagen. Why not?
Ground zero of some kind of biological, pathological, whatever the fuck this is, destructive force seems like a grand old time.
What could go wrong? TM. But anyway, so they realize that. I don't want to skip over any of your notes. So continue.
So this is where they actually say I did write down Alicorn together in the old castle, but again I could be wrong with that. We actually do see Canterlot ghoul-eyed. This is actually a line from the book. Canterlot ghoul-eyed adolescent dragons.
Yep, baby dragons.
Joy.
Like Spike.
That are old enough to speak, though.
Yeah,
old enough to speak. So they are adolescents, which means they are fully functional and. Also,
why were there so many dragons in Canterlot? I thought they were rarer.
That was actually part of the school there.
So the dragons came there to learn magic? I thought dragon magic was different.
This is actually K-Cat's interpretation, I think. I don't ever think that's ever explained to this veracity in the show. For Twilight, when Twilight was picked to work in the School of Magics, when she was accepted into the Canterlot Celestia School of Sciences, or Magics, whatever, the test done was if they could hatch a dragon egg.
Oh, okay.
So, now... It's theorized...
So are you saying that they stole dragon eggs specifically?
Well, no, it's theorized. The story goes a different direction, I will say. But it's theorized that, from other fans, that the situation was actually Kobayashi Maru.
Oh.
And so it was literally just seeing how the students approached the situation. And you'll notice that a lot in education.
The only problem is that Twilight Sparkle was successful. And
and they were like, shit.
Yeah.
He won the Kobayashi Maru. Of course, you can't hack the egg, so obviously she was stronger than they had imagined. She became the grandest Mary Sue in all of Equestria.
I know.
And inevitably led to the partial destruction of the world. Yay! So,
actually, it mirrors a lot of The Last Jedi there. No comment.
That was technically Star Trek 2 that I was going for.
No,
but
you're talking about Mary Sue characters and destroying the entire world and moving on.
Oh boy, we're going to get some people mad. An important thing: Velvet tosses them off the trail by throwing out a dress that was laden with sapphires.
Right. So of course, they're all
dragons eat gems in this universe.
Well, of course they do. Yeah, we've touched on that before. Okay. Mr. Topaz, when he wasn't eating ponies, was eating gems. It was a gem mine. Really, prefer ponies to gems.
Well, I'm sure they would get bored with gems after a while.
Yeah.
Imagine eating nothing but Brussels sprouts.
Interesting, though. It's canonical to Dungeons and Dragons that dragons can consume gold and gems. In that, they have the metabolism to actually break them down, which
makes sense. I mean, if you're a creature that's that old that lives for that long, you probably have a really freaking slow metabolism.
You would certainly think so. So something else we need to talk on is that because nothing goes to plan, the plan begins to change around them
on the fly. So they realize they can't.
Yeah, they get off the path.
They decide to, rather than touch down at the Ministry Walk, they have to go out to the local school, which is where they see the dragons.
Because Ministry Walk is full of ALICORNs.
Yeah. Now, this is an interesting point as well, and this is obviously an aside, a joke to the games, in which Calamity says... It goes on this tirade about the clipboards, how they could use the clipboards as ablative, and I am shocked that he actually used the term ablative, but ablative shielding to the Sky Bandit because they were nigh indestructible. You found them all over the fucking place. They were, after 200 years, they were still in perfect condition everywhere.
That's funny.
Yeah, which is a joke, and of course, Steelhooves follows suit with something about how Applejack used all of the stubbornite that she had and kept none of it for herself. And Little Pip's like, did Steelhooves just joke? Did he just made a joke?
Yeah, they were making jokes about stubbornite mines and about how how the Apple family apparently was sitting on a motherload of stubbornite mines. And he's like, I'll have you know that Applejack gave away as much of her stubbornite as she...
It's amazing that you see Steelhooves crack up because it's like, holy fuck. The serious guy is cracking jokes. Something really weird's happening.
In a place that's really uncomfortable too. But what we should say is, so Calamity is like, wow, we could use more magical weapons. We should go to the Ministry of Magic and go collect magical weapons. And Velvet Primity is thinking, wow, we're really low on supplies. I want to go to the Ministry of Peace. But she really wants to go to the Ministry of Peace because that's
Fluttershy stuff.
Fluttershy,
because she's a Fluttershy fangirl. As I put on the notes here, the shopping list in hell grows and grows and grows.
Right, and so here's the question is certainly going to become: listen, we had enough supplies to do one thing. Now you're trying to do two things. If we choose one, we have to choose one. We can't do
technically we've done two. Really, it's grown to four.
Really, they shouldn't do any.
And then they said, well, maybe we can go to the castle too. And she's like, oh.
What, to just, be nosy, pry around? That's essentially what they want to do.
So they actually, upon getting into the school, they see a large double window that allows them entry. And as soon as they go in, they find a broadcaster, which is actually one of the PA speakers inside the school, Little Pip shoots it to destroy it, and of course they realize
There's a second one.
Well, no, the second they realize that it's been destroyed, it creates a shield barrier locking them into the school.
It should also be noted on that note that it was Calamity who charged into the room with the broadcasters. And dives into the middle of the room, and immediately blood starts pooling out of his eyes and ears. And
yeah. Good job, Calamity.
Yeah, he's true to his name. He's consistent, if nothing else.
Okay. So, an interesting few points about world building here. K-Cat's vision of Equestria lies on a globe, which we thought was really interesting. Because it's never really explained in the show. I don't think that it's on a globe. Maybe a few times they kind of reference it, but it's never... I don't know.
I am an equestrian flat earther. It's all one plane.
Generally makes for a more interesting story if it is flat. Because it's like, how the hell does everything work now?
Yeah.
Velvet finds out about the equestrian Bert the Turtle, which is, if you do not know, which is more of an Americana thing. Bert the Turtle is a little PSA. You can find it on YouTube from the 1940s about teaching children that to save themselves from the bomb, all they had to do was get under the desk. And they'd survive. Because he didn't want to tell your populace that they were fucked.
Yeah. So what they were essentially telling was that unicorn ponies put a shield around yourself, and that'll protect you from the mega spell. And Velvet Remedy thinks that's just
cruel, but it's necessary.
We can actually teach them a little thing from Fallout here. You know the Fallout Pip Boy, doing this motion?
The rule of thumb.
Everybody thinks that what he's doing is he's a thumbs up and a wink, but this actually is, if you see the flash and the mushroom cloud in the distance, if your thumb can cover the mushroom cloud, you're safe. If it can't, you need to run.
Well, and it's too late.
Right.
Because the nuclear fallout's gotten you. But, of course, that's not entirely accurate anyway, because nuclear fallout flows with winds, and if you're upwind, if you're downwind of it, you're fucked either way.
Right, but it's a little interesting thing. He looks like an innocuous mascot. But it's because our generation is so disconnected from that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, now some of you obviously do know that, but you don't know it from school. You know it because it was like, hey, a Fallout fact.
But anyways, we also find out that though little Pip can massacre an entire village, she can't kill zombie children.
Because she didn't kill. She did kill a child,
a juvenile.
But yeah, no, the child. They describe this, and this is something that we touched on before. But the idea that you see ghoulified zombie pony children and you have to kill them, terrifying. I mean, terrifying realization that you have to come to. Think that and all their lives have been snuffed out. This is suddenly no longer as pleasant as I thought it would be.
The Jedi are going to feel this one, buddy boy.
They already did. But an interesting thing, we already talked on the show about children as they're exposed in the games. Fallout 3 did a pretty good job of showing children, but only in the one aspect of Little Lamplight.
Right.
People keep asking, why aren't there more children in this setting? And it's like, well, if you start talking about more children in this setting, you have to start answering some questions. And one of those questions are child death. And in this case, ghoulified children. Now, Fallout 4 had one ghoul child, but it was very literally played off. It was a part of a quest that was directly related.
Billy in the refrigerator.
Billy in the refrigerator. And it was very... I mean, and it was also kind of...
But it was interesting that they did show what it was supposed to, that when you were a ghoul, you were trapped in the size body you had.
Yeah, because you don't grow. Your body literally just stops where it is.
Yeah.
Because you're regular...
Locked in time. Always quietly, slowly headed
Of course, how it didn't go mad and try to kill the first thing that actually came at it just... Beyond me, because it's like you're stuck in a box for 200 years, you're not going to be sane. You are not going to be sane. Especially in the formative years of your life when you're like 13 to 12, 13. No, you are not going to be a sane individual.
Was part of the claim in that story that it was a lead-lined fridge, like the stupid thing from Indiana Jones 4?
I don't think so.
I don't remember that quest line.
I don't think that was no, they did have the lead-lined fridge joke in New Vegas.
Yeah.
Where if you get the Wild Wasteland perk, then one of the fridges you actually find has a skeleton inside.
Speaking of which, a plug for our live stream, we will be diving into the Fallout New Vegas side of TTW today.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Today? I mean, they're going to see this later.
That is also true.
So yes. Today in the past.
But go back and watch the video from the live stream.
Okay. So let me move forward on here a bit. Okay, so Pip with Velvet start talking about steel hooves and his medical systems and how they've been overtaxed, possibly. They don't know, but Velvet is very concerned that I was
going to say it was Velvet that mentions it.
Yeah, and he's been pushing himself very hard.
And of course, it turns out that, yes, all of his systems were depleted.
Oh, yeah, but the thing is that Pip's like, no, he would tell us, and Velvet's like, no, he wouldn't. Not a chance. Not a chance in hell would he ever
Turns out
tell
one
you.
of his legs is so broken that essentially the armor is what's holding the leg together.
Yeah.
He's been popping pain pills like crazy.
Oh, the armor has.
Right.
But the thing is that little Pip also starts realizing, what about Zenith? What about Hell of Remedy? What about Calamity? They're kind of... She, through her actions, not only pushing herself, but she's pushing her friends to the very extreme.
They also
of what
make the
they're capable
realization that Zenith has not told her daughter that she's her mother, and is also seemingly very worried about her ghoul bite.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so Pip has to start questioning these things. They come across more. It kind of time skips a little bit, and they come across more ghoulified dragons as well as ghoulified pony children. And Pip has this shock moment that just shakes her to her very fundamental core, especially because she's a stable pony, and this is in the stable life. What's the most important aspect of your existence? Your cutie mark. And so she sees this little filly come out, and the cutie mark on the filly is the pink cloud.
Got their cutie marks after the event.
Yeah, and it's like...
Which doesn't make any sense because they're not aging. Why would they suddenly get their cutie mark?
Cutie mark doesn't have to do with age. It has to do with when you get it. You get it as an act of some sort. You can get your cutie mark when you're 2. You can get it when you're 30.
Gotcha. For some reason, I thought it was like a rite of passage. However,
it is a rite of passage, but it's not
that doesn't make any
age-based.
sense. But in the stable, you're treated as an adult once you get your mark. So if you get it at 2, are you an adult at 2?
K-Cat? That's...
Yeah, I mean, if you do
That's
get
an
a cutie
interesting
mark
question.
early, because in the stables, your mark is a designation. It's like a bar mitzvah. It's like, now you're an adult. You're gonna have a job. Which is interesting too. Well, actually, I guess little Pip didn't start working until she had a cutie mark, right? And her cutie mark is the Pip buck,
which means that she was the Pip buck technician.
Correct.
Yeah. See, there you go.
No, but that does make sense. But it is interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that was very, very horrifying reality, and she even describes it as the pink cloud taking the identity of the pony for itself. Mm-hmm. Not only taking the life and the future and the very existence, but taking the identity and its past and its history and its entire conceptual creation for its own. Dark.
So the last thing we touch on in this part of the chapter is we happen upon a memory. Mm-hmm. A very important memory.
Mm-hmm. Now, the way this chapter is paced out and the way that it's separated is obviously by these memories, which are interlaced into the events. It's not that we find it within the school. It is just one that is portrayed as part of what this chapter is.
Right.
And it is the memory is the apple memory, as it's described. Mm-hmm. And it is of...
Apple snack.
Apple snack, what specifically?
Well, actually, it's from the perspective of another male pony that's having a conversation with Zakora, the zebra from the show, as I understand.
Yes.
And essentially, what they're detailing is a way to gain the trust of the zebras. Mm-hmm. Who's the leader of the zebras? He's called the Kaiser, right? Mm-hmm. He's the Kaiser, right? Playing in with the Legion.
Yeah.
The Legion of Zebras. And so essentially a way to gain their trust and end the war.
Yep.
It's all a plot, but it's falling into the same secret betrayal, not actually betrayal.
Yeah.
Zakora storyline that we hinted at beforehand.
And it's very cloak and dagger, spy versus spy kind of thing.
But to sell that their conversation was not, or rather that she is an enemy, he commands her to hit him, to strike him.
And she does, and she hurts him a little more than he was supposed to.
Unfortunately, the rest of the memory, he is gagging on blood and can't breathe and losing control. And Zecora, in trying to leave, Apple Snack discovers this young colt, or I say young, but I don't remember his age, but discovers this stallion. It doesn't matter his age, but male pony,
a guard, young guard,
and also discovers Zecora.
And
to which he said, "I trusted you. She trusted you. I have even begun to like you and trust you because she told me I should." Talking about Applejack, because she's Applejack's friend. And we trusted you, and here I should have known better. You've hurt us again. You've hurt this pony here. Never again. And she's like, I give up. I confess. I'm your prisoner. And what does he say? That he says, died in custody. As something like a nice way of
because
resisted arrest.
Because Apple Snack, as was shown, is very, very...
He's got a dark side.
He's got a very powerful dark side, something that he doesn't like talking about, but he is very cut to the core.
So at first, Zecora tries toying with him, just dodging his attacks. But eventually he gets the upper hand. And abso-fucking-lutely murders her.
Yeah.
Just beats her to death.
It's described when Applejack, who sees this, who comes out of the elevator and sees this, sees him coated in her blood.
Yeah.
And he explains, she explains, kind of, this was... Little Pip realizes in the memory orb...
This was the event.
This was the event that caused them to
That they were trying to mend things.
And this just shattered any hope they had of ever being together. Which is...
But nobody fucking told him.
You can't.
Right.
You can't. But that's the thing about the whole thing. You can't. Now, I will direct you to the quote from chapter 35, which I talked about before.
Yes.
Steelhooves stared over the harbor. "I need to thank you, Little Pip." "For what?" "For failing," Steelhooves said, surprising me. "All this time, you have been some pony to look up to. You have made me want to be a better pony. But at the same time, you were too good." He looked at me. You were an impossible standard. Tonight, you have made it easier for me to live with myself."
Yeah.
He was talking about that.
Yes. It's something he thinks about every day. Something he thinks about every day. He's not losing any sleep over the sheriff that he...
No.
Or whoever he locked away in the basement.
And we're definitely seeing a lot more of him as a character now with... after in the last one where he exposes, "This is where I died. This is where I no longer was. Apple Snack, I had to become Steelhooves."
I would make the argument that in the entire story, he's the second most important character. It's hard to make the argument that he's more important than Pip, but canonically, his connection to the past is one of the things. They would not have been able to go into Canterlot were it not for his help.
Yeah, and I think, it's impossible to hold him to a standard higher because he is a character at this point would not exist without Pip because she helped push him into this revelation.
Well, actually, the truth is, he'd still be rotting, laying in the ground with a dead suit is what he'd be doing, praying that a Brotherhood member finds him.
Or just giving up on whatever life and just waiting for the end.
Yeah, but as a ghoul, that could be hundreds of years. You know what I mean?
He seems like he probably had, at that point, decided that was what his future held.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a terrifying thought.
Do we even... I can't remember in the story, how long had he been trapped there? When we discover him immobilized? Do we know how long he'd been there?
He was actually just there because, remember, he shot at the ALICORNS first because they were...
Oh,
right
that's
for the
right.
ALICORNS
It disabled his suit. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's been a few chapters now.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's fine. It's not a long book, so I don't know why you're...
That right there was chapter 37, part 1.
Mm-hmm. So?
Christopher.
Yes?
Do you know what time it is? Do you realize what time is suddenly upon us? It's a very familiar time.
I'm going to have to check my watch.
Some might even say that it's the time of their life. I'll tell you, it starts with a P and rhymes with Moni. It's the Pony Pun of the Week!
So, this week, the Pony Pun of the Week is a foal's errand.
A foal's errand.
A foal's errand. attempting to save the ghoulified children in Canterlot is a fool's errand.
No. That one hits a little close to home for a little bit.
It's a really heavy one. I do like this chapter for how heavy it is. It really pours it on thick, but it doesn't do so in a way that's unbelievable. It does so in a way that's definitely built up and purposeful and structured. And, yeah, it's just harsh.
And we actually have a question this week from Thomas Young. Thomas Young says, I have a little question for Chris. Just a little question. Just a little one. Have you been keeping up with Fallout Equestria Homelands?
No. Yeah,
thanks for playing.
No, I'm waiting for it to finish. And then I'll read it.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Do you know what it's about?
It's a sequel to Project Horizons.
I see. The story that seems to be so polarizing on our message board.
It's polarizing everywhere. I'm just waiting, and then may go through it. We'll see.
So obviously the next couple episodes will be dedicated to Chapter 37. Next one will be 37.2. Do you know how many parts there are? Six parts. The next 5 episodes will be centered around Chapter 37.
We may combine it. We just have to see exactly how it's formulated.
Okay.
I mean, if
we'll put it in the title. You'll know what it is when you begin. Yeah. If you want to find the exact part of the chapter that you like. It
depends upon if the content is enough or sparse enough to where we can really go into depth like we really need to. Because this is, as many have said in the comments, a very... It's a long shit chapter, but it also has to deal with a lot of things in the story. Yes.
So, if you are a Twitter user, you can follow us on Twitter at CriscoCast. If you are listening to us on the podcast, you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/CriscoBrandBiscuits. We got a ton of other videos and live streams and some new podcasts coming up that will be coming around, so you can find us there. If you are watching us on YouTube, of course, you can find us at thefoalyofman.libsyn.com. And if you okay? You found all right. If you still send emails and want to send us an email, you can do so at cbpbch@gmail.com. Again, that is cbpbch@gmail.com.
Why, Grandson, I thought I was supposed to still talk to you on the email. No, Granny, you know I'm only on Discord.
Now I got an email, hoping from a female.
And then you're bringing it straight back to when Granny actually was relevant.
But yes, what's crazy is that our children's generation, they're going to think email is snail mail. Like the way we think of the regular post system. Or the way we think about pagers. I looked in horror at a minute-long voicemail.
It's funny because pagers are still in use.
No, they are. Mostly in the medical profession.
Mostly. I mean, anything devoted around that.
And third world countries. But anyways, you have happily wasted another wonderful episode of The Foally of Man. So, for Chris, I'm Robert.
Dare you speak for me?
Okay.
How dare you?
Oh, man. Fine. It's all yours.
Bye.
See you later.
But the cry